to be and recoup. But I got to watch this my second time watching it, and the first time I saw a little screen. But John suggested that you watch it with the audiences because you'll definitely hear a lot of sniffling. And so I guess the first question, especially as a dog owner, is why?
Why what?
Why?
I don't know. I mean, we live in such strange times now. I think we're all crying for different reasons. I'm constantly crying. I don't know, random things now. But you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this was like a very personal story. I wrote it after my first dog, whose name is also Keng, passed away back in 2014, and it was kind of like based on these sort of observations I made about interpersonal relationships in that period of time, like 3 months after the death of the dog, that I thought was very interesting. That I want to put it into a film like this. But you know, I think it's like ultimately, you know, I was like looking for a film at that time that was addressing this very specific experience of like losing a pet, you know. But for me, it was like deeply profound, and you know, I remember at that time I was like, you know, the only film I could find at that time was like Marley and Me, but I wanted to watch Marley and Me after Marley dies, you know. So I thought I'll make a movie about that. So that's what you saw. But I have a feeling that a lot of people who have pets, you know, and they've lost pets, like this is something that, you know, hopefully you can relate to, and that it sort of helps you heal when you watch it.
I think the film does a good job at showing how different folks process grief, from Margaret Cho to Jesse Tyler Ferguson. Can you speak a little bit more about that character development?
Characters all have their own journey of coping with loss, you know? I mean, there's Jesse's character, Stan, who lost his partner. And then there's also even, you could also say that Maggie, the daughter, is still grappling with the loss of her father, who sort of walked out of them when she was young and hasn't really quite come to terms with it. And I think that was something that was very much based on observations as well, you know. Emotionally, I was more open as a person, you know, and before that, I was fairly kind of like I was a very emotionally reserved, composed person, you know, and the time after I lost my dog, it was very much like I couldn't contain myself most of the time. Those weeks were very surprised to see that side of me, and I think it sort of allowed them to be more open and vulnerable with me, and I think it sort of deepened our relationships in very interesting ways. So it was pretty much, yeah, on those observations.
Talk a little bit about Atsuko's character.
Yeah, I mean, Atsuko's character was like very much like, you know, I've known her for a while, and I kind of wanted to play a version of a character that's kind of like who she is in real life, you know. But I think this mukbang thing that I don't know if any one of you guys actually watch it, but like I'm very fascinated by the world, because I think a lot of people have gotten really famous from that, and there's a lot of Asian superstars in that world, you know, and I just really got into that as I was doing research, and I found myself watching a lot of videos of people stuffing their faces before I go to bed, and it became like a thing where it would help me fall asleep. So I wanted Atsuko to do her rendition of it, you know, and she was actually not very familiar with it, and she basically watched a lot of videos. But yeah, it's kind of this really funny idea of how she was kind of like this sort of like social media celebrity, and you can sort of argue that stuffing your face is not something that requires any craft, you know. She has to like support the brother who actually is like a seasoned actor, you know. I think that sort of juxtaposition is very much, I don't know, I think it happens in real life now, you know, so I just wanted to.
That's great. So speaking of Atsuko, and you have two amazing comedians that you got to work with for this film, with Margaret Cho and Atsuko. I share Atsuko's things like almost on the daily now, just because she's got these amazing, you know, clips that are on social media. For both of you, what was it like working with Margaret and Atsuko, and especially for Margaret, considering that her role was not so much comedy-based?
This was I did a horror movie with Margaret previously. Margaret is she's such a friend on set. Especially when there's like dogs on set every day, like cheering the whole crew up. It was a very fun process.
Yeah, I would say the same, you know, just in the sense that I try to enforce a very strong, a very strict no asshole policy across the board with cast and crew, because I've been traumatized by really scary actors, and I was like, never again. So we sort of, anyone that we brought into the film, whether it's cast and crew, even including Jang, we made sure that.
But we're gonna open up to questions. I have one more question, then we can bring it to the audience. The song, and I'm gonna mention. Get your song, get your ball, get your ball.
Right.
Get your goddamn ball.
Yeah.
Is that a song? We all have songs that we sing to our pets.
Yeah.
I can sing mine right now too.
Okay,
But
okay.
was that your actual song that you had for Tanner?
No, my actual song. So it's the sort of singing song to dog thing is a very interesting sort of thing to try to depict on screen, because my real one is so cringy that I would never ever want like it to be performed publicly. I had to work with Margaret on a version that was like, and I asked her input also to sort of, let's figure out a song that doesn't sound too much like a professionally crafted song, but still sounds silly enough that in different contexts of the movie, you can sort of understand why it has specific meaning to the people who came up with it, whether it's Margaret or with Andy, who played by Kenneth, that you sort of learn later on that it's actually, he came up with the song, and it's something that they sang to the dog together. So it's kind of like that, so I don't know, does that answer?
Yeah, I would be mortified if anyone heard me sing my dog song.
Right, yeah.
Well, I guess one more question is, with that song and then the song that, Stan and Craig had, was there a tie-in to that, or how did you? No, I mean, the song that Craig sings, that Stan sings with Emma in the hotel room is a song by Daniel Johnston called True Love Will Find You in the End. It's like a 90s alternative song, which very much fits the, because I always wrote like Emma and Stan as being sort of like Gen X characters. So yeah, it's an actual song, and I was recently told by another programmer at a festival that, because I haven't seen the Joker sequel yet, but apparently Joaquin Phoenix sings the same song in the closing credits of the Joker sequel. So just there you go, a little trivia. Any questions? Any questions from the audience? There.
Oh yes. Hi.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I think I heard the sniffles around the same time during the reunion scene. I love that it took place in Canoga Park, my hometown.
Right. Okay.
I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more. Where in the process did that scene occur? How did you guys build up to that? It was so powerful, and I feel like we all felt it.
Yeah.
Could you just talk about shooting that part a little bit and building those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like a tricky location, right? Like it was, like you hated it. You hated that location.
Yeah, well, I think most of the film took place in Woodland Hills, Canoga Park area. And then we were just like looking for a diner, because he wrote it as a diner. And there was like no diners in Canoga Park. So we just searched everywhere until we found this one small restaurant. But the problem was the final scene after that, where Kenneth and Alice finally hug, was written in a parking lot. But this was like the ugliest parking lot ever. And we had no choice but to shoot there, and it was also in the flight path of LAX. So like literally every minute they were like sniffling and crying, and then plane, and then we would have to stop for the plane to come. But I think the actors still brought together some magic. It was really beautiful to see, even in this not very good looking diner. They still brought a really strong performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were very much in a zone. They obviously, the three actors they weren't paying attention to us griping about how much we hated the location or what kind of problems we were having, which is a testament to how they can very much stay in their bubble. Like I think Kenneth especially had the toughest performance in that whole section, just because Kenneth's like such like such an actor in the sense that like I would usually make fun of those kind of actors, but then with him, I'm kind of like, you're so serious that like I love you so much for being so fucking serious, because he beats himself up really badly if he feels like he's not nailing it, and then we always have to tell him that it's like, no, that was fine, that was like a really good take, I don't know what you're talking about, and he's like, no, it's not good, it's not, I'm not like crying enough, and I'm not like, I just didn't feel it, can you, like he always wanted another take, and we were happy to give it to him until we ran out of time. But I think we were very aware that we got it, you know, like it was very vivid. Like to John, we were just kind of like, okay, this is like in the can. This is like we got it. And Kenneth is like so stressed out about this whole scene that he kept texting me after we wrapped, and was like, I still think about that scene, and I don't think I gave it to you guys. Like, are you sure you can cut that together? Like, he was always like that, and I was like, got so annoyed. And then finally, when we were like getting the movie ready, and we were like premiering in Tribeca, and he was still stressed out about that scene. He was like, are you sure that it's like what you want it to, are you happy with it? And like, I don't know, at that point it was like not cute anymore. I was like, Kenneth, you don't trust me, that's fine, you know, I mean, I don't care if you like it or not, ultimately. And then eventually when he saw it, he was just very pleased, you know. But I think it's a scene that was very much, it required a lot of emotional investment for all three of them, but especially for Kenneth. And I think I'm really glad that it sort of came out the way that it did.
Any other questions you had?
Yeah, you said you wrote it 10 years ago?
Yeah.
What was the process to get it made between then and now?
Gosh.
So what was the process to get it made?
I think the short answer to the question is that I really hope I don't have to go through that again, just because it took too long, and we just had so many actors who came on board who dropped out, you know, and then we were supposed to shoot during 2020, and then COVID happened, and then there was just moments where I was like, this would never get made, sort of thing, you know. But I think me and my producers kept pushing, and then we got great people to be our financing partners who stuck with it, you know. So ultimately, we made it. But I think I put down my second dog, Tesla, and then I went to LA to shoot this movie. So I was like totally in that headspace when I started making this movie. So I made the movie, we shot the movie, then we cut the movie, we picture locked the movie in late summer of 2023. And then I went back to Austin, and then a couple of months later, my husband of 25 years got sick, and then he was hospitalized, and he passed away earlier this year. And so when I hear that scene in a hotel room when Stan says, you know, we would have been together for 25 years, it was still around, like that line was written years ago. This was a line that was written in the script like as a fictional thing, you know. It was not meant to mirror my own life in any ways. And so now I'm like watching the film, and it's this weird sort of time warp where this is written about a specific past, and I'm watching it, I feel like it's reflecting my present. And in some ways, I'm wondering whether it's trying to tell me something about my future too, you know. Going through right now, I'm in the midst of my sort of like major loss of losing a spouse. Like when I watch the end of the movie when Emma sort of goes on, it's like a reminder to myself that I can go on too, you know. And I really appreciate that I could have this sort of very accidental relationship with the film where it's like, it's still speaking to me now that it's done, you know. Yeah.
And I forgot to mention that All That We Love was awarded the Best Narrative Feature last night.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we can celebrate that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, what was like the very first scene you shot and then the last one you shot? And I was also curious, was any of the direct decor in Atsuko's house like hers or real? Because it felt really like her.
I'll answer that one first. The decor is not hers. Like, I think our production designer, Angelique, who's amazing, she reached out to Atsuko and basically asked her who are a lot of people who give her stuff, clothing and whatever, you know, and also I guess whatever swag that she usually gets, you know. And I think our production designer basically reached out to those people, and they basically gave us a bunch of stuff to like use in a film. So maybe that reflects in a way that the authenticity of what you're talking about, where it's like, oh yeah, it looks like this is part of Atsuko's world in a way. First scene I don't know, what was the first scene we shot? Do you remember?
I think the first scene we shot was like the phone call from Alice. But very
right, right.
Very early on, we
Yeah.
shot the death of the
Yes,
dog.
First week, yeah.
And like immediately when the first crew, when the crew first saw it, they just lost it on set. Yeah, it was a really hard scene to shoot, and that was like one of the first few major scenes that we shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we wrapped on, what was the last thing we wrapped on? Oh, it was the scene that we wrapped on. This is a very interesting, yeah. So the scene we wrapped on was the scene when Emma is at Kayla's house and they're in bed and they're sort of cuddling, and then she's saying, you know, what would you say to Tanner if he was here? And, you know, she delivers that section about like, if I could just see you for one moment. That was the last scene we shot.
We have time for one more question. Anyone else? There you go.
What's your next project?
Next project. I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot of things in development, but I would say it's a really hard time to be a filmmaker now. To be an independent filmmaker, especially. I still make movies thinking that this is gonna be the last thing I make, you know, because it's just, I mean, you know, we went through the strike and everything, and it's like, and then now the world has sort of changed in ways that I don't know how it's gonna affect entertainment in the next couple of months in terms of the kind of stories we tell and so forth. Like even a movie like this with a predominantly Asian American cast and all that kind of stuff. Like I feel like there's a part of me that is scared that the space is shrinking, you know, in terms of the kind of the budget and resources that is required to put into stories like this in order to be able to compete on the level of anything that's playing in any of these Cineplex screens right now. You know, I think these kind of stories need a level of budget and resources so that we are as good as, not like, oh, it's just playing at the festival or whatever, just this one time sort of thing. And I'm deeply concerned about whether that space is shrinking, honestly, because I just don't know how things are gonna turn into anymore. But with that said, I don't think it's part of my DNA at this point to quit making stuff, you know? I mean, I'm still gonna keep pushing to make stories that mean something to me. Whether I actually finish them into a film that everyone can watch right now remains to be seen, because so much of it is just writing, you know? I think writing, thankfully, is something that you can always do. You don't need someone to greenlight you to write a script, you know? So I would say, hopefully the next thing I make is, I don't know, something good and meaningful, maybe, I don't know. Something, or maybe I'll just sell the fuck out, I don't know. You know, who knows?
Won't judge
I'll
you.
be lucky to make anything, yeah.
Well, let's give it up for award-winning director Yen Tan
Thank you.
and director of
Thank you,
photography
Alex.
John Keng.
Thanks so much.